Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrea Springer, and I am the Programs and Communications Director at WDO, and have the pleasure of being with you for the next hour or so to help introduce our panelists and moderators. I'd like to thank everyone for staying tuned with us and enjoying this Let's Talk Diversity 24-hour event. We've just seen a pre-recorded session from Amos Scully entitled Icons Can't Be Our Only History, which we hope you enjoyed. If you're just tuning in now, please settle in as we move to our next session, which will be moderated by Ali Grehan. Ali is a Dublin City architect who leads a multidisciplinary team responsible for developing a broad urban design agenda, including the delivery of diverse projects in relation to housing, public realm, community, and cultural infrastructure. Her career has spanned private practice in Dublin, London, and Bilbao, and in the public sector, where her particular focus has been on large-scale urban regeneration. As a WDO member, we are glad to have Ali join us for this session with Daniel Kotsjuba. Ali?
Thanks. Thanks so much, Andrea, and good afternoon or morning or evening, everybody. It's a great honor to introduce Daniel Kotsjuba to you. And Daniel is a designer based in Estonia who is practicing in the field of human-centered design. As a designer who's been working for the last 3 years in the Estonian public sector innovation team, Daniel will share how to design public services or service to be more user-friendly and foster collaboration between different stakeholders, as well as, I suppose, exploring how we understand innovation in the public sector. And I'm very interested in hearing Daniel's talk because bluntly, public sector diversity and innovation seem to be mutually exclusive terms. So over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Ali, for a lovely introduction. I'll just share my screen with my presentation. Thank you really for the organizers for the World Design Day and for an invitation also. It's really lovely to be here. So first of all, let's start. I have to start with just a bit explaining what is Estonia. Just a few words where we are. We are a relatively small country in Northern Europe. Next here, we have Scandinavia, and just east of us, there is Russia. And we're part of the Baltic states. We do have our own language, Estonian language. We are a country as large as Denmark or Netherlands, but the population of us, there is only 1.3 million people of us. So we're a relatively small country. We do speak different languages like English, Estonian, Russian, also Finnish and German. These are maybe the more spoken language in Estonia. And maybe last but not least, there is a sport in Scandinavia called women carrying, and there's called Estonian technique. This is Estonian technique how to do wife carrying. And so anyways, it's a fun place to visit. So we have a lot of untouched nature, and I'm sure that you'll feel welcome here. But as Ali introduced me, I am part of Estonian Public Sector Innovation Team, and I am one of 5 members of Estonian Public Sector Innovation Team, and we are sort of an experiment in Estonian public sector. Just to say that in Estonian public sector we have 11 ministries, and we are working on the state level. And I guess if you're trying to think of how can I input the topic of diversity, then maybe my presentation is sort of diversifying the range of presentations happening during this World Design Day. Anyways, we are actually officially under the government office, but every ministry is actually sort of having an input in our project, sort of in our team, which means that they can get also projects from us. How do we do? We are sort of with a range of backgrounds. I am more as a designer here, but I've evolved from sort of a graphic design approach into more service design approach. And today I'm helping to design better public services. What we do is we sort of make an open call among public servants to propose projects that we can work on then for 6 to 12 months. And this is, we get the mandate from the Board of Secretary Generals, which is the highest board in administrative power. So what do we try to do? We try to encourage and support the development of more customer or user-centric public services. And we do it through the design process. And I'll just go through our work a bit more closer and some of the examples. And this is sort of the one of the pillars that our team sort of stands upon. And the second one is cooperation. Quite often it's discussed all over the world that the problems that countries have are not necessarily ministry specific, or let's say they're not sort of stakeholder specific. They are sort of multi-ministries. And that's why we try to, with every project, we are forming teams that are from different ministries. And this is sort of this is the second pillar that we stand upon. We try to promote cooperation. And of course, new ways of working, new tools in public sector, openness for new ideas, new ways of working, especially the COVID period has really forced everyone to change the way they work so far. And this has been sort of also really, for us also sort of necessary to look over how we approach to our work also. And also we support knowledge sharing in different networks. And we try to always see that we try to increase the motivation. So this is one example of a team working on an experiment with Legos, for example. This isn't very accustomed to public service servants to play in their meetings with Legos, but this is a really nice way to sort of minimize some risks that would happen when you launch an experiment. And I'll talk about this specific experiment in a few seconds. So what do we do? What do we do is sort of we have these think along sessions also where we introduce design thinking. We have sort of a tailored trainings. We have evolved from specific ministry specific trainings into the design sprints. We sort of form, we hold design sprint sessions for 5 to 6 projects, for example. And also, and maybe the main 60 to 80% of our work goes into the service design process program that we call the Public Sector Innovation Program. This is where we get, this is where we sort of try to root design thinking in public service. But also we have networking and sort of innovation lab or support group between people who are sort of innovation cells in different ministries. So as I mentioned, that we are going through the design process, and why do I emphasize it, and why do I show the British Design Council's double diamond model? Is because quite often that we see is that public servants are coming already to our program with ready solution. Let's execute a certain solution without really understanding what the problem is from the user side. And this is sort of, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of research done, papers on different problems that the government is tackling, or the country is tackling. But to really understand what is the root of a problem, what is the root of a problem for a user, that needs another approach, that needs more qualitative approach. That's why I'm emphasizing that we're building our process, and the double diamond model is we are trying to really understand the roots of the problem and then going to the development of the solutions. This is a picture of one of our co-working sessions pre-COVID period. I have to emphasize, at the moment we're all fully digital. So how do we understand what? How do we reach the understanding of the roots of the problem? Is through qualitative research. This is something there are many in many countries. There are also similar teams as ours is, but we see it quite unique that we get the public officials to go on to the field work, and we see it really important. And why is it important? The main keyword here is empathy. We can empathize with the problem. We can empathize with the user at hand. That we try to develop the services for. That's why it's important to really understand. It's not enough to read the papers. We need to really understand the context that the user is in. That's why it's important to go out in the field, and through a methodology, we can get into the more better understanding of the problem. So there, I'm not going to go everyone through it, but there have been a lot of projects, and I guess very diverse projects, from cancer patient journeys to for example, creating a single digital gateway for entrepreneurs, or demand responsive transportation system, or for example, patient-friendly medical information, or just the right usage of tractor diesel. There are a really variety of projects that we've tackled during these 3 years. And currently, we're working on also a very diverse range of projects. I'm going to go through a couple of projects just to exemplify what has been maybe the outcome of some of the projects, some of the processes. One of them was Timeout Station. I don't know, maybe this has been maybe more spread also in globally, but the idea was that Ministry of Interior came to us with a problem that the increase of traffic accident hasn't decreased during some sort of period of years. There have been a huge amount of attempts, and so variety of attempts to decrease the traffic accidents, that sort of they ran out of ideas what to do. And the demand for this project was to come up with ideas that have never been done. And to our team, we formed a team of ministry officials, and of course, and also police, active policemen. And one of the maybe the outcome of the field work was that at first the police didn't want to interview because they said that they are always interviewing. They have done so many interviews with so many speeding, they thought that they'll get nothing new. But the fact was that we made them go in another position, not in a uniform. And that's sort of creating a total another dimension to the interview. And what turned out was that legal norms and social norms are really different aspects. For example, it's not a problem to exceed speeding limits for 5 to 10 kilometers per hour in a city, because everyone does it. But by increasing speed, you increase the possibility of accidents. But what people said was that getting traffic tickets isn't really a problem. It's sort of like paying your bills. But sitting in a police car, this was something that people really didn't like. And the time spent in a police car and being sort of given fine, sort of. So that was the place where basically Timeout Station was born in that sense, or had its idea rooted, I guess. The idea is that instead of getting a fine, you get sort of you pay in time, basically. You speed up to 20 kilometers an hour. You have to wait alongside of the road for 45 minutes. You speed more, then you have to wait for 60 minutes, for example. And this was maybe one of the ideas or solutions that came from that experiment. Of course, it's more maybe there is a lot to it, but what to just maybe end up with this example is that we didn't maybe really understand. We didn't really reach the understanding whether we reduced traffic accidents by it, or even if we'd had the effect, but we sort of quickly tried to experiment with the solution in order to understand whether it works or not. Now it's sort of officially legalized by the government, the parliament, to continue with the experiment, basically in Estonian roads, to understand better if it works or not. Just to go quickly for a couple of questions in the end. Another problem that's another solution or idea that came about last year was a solution, a language roulette that we call. It was with the project where we looked into the problem of how to teach Estonian language as a secondary language. And during the COVID period, all the core language courses were closed down because no sort of gathering was allowed. And but for language learning sake, it's a huge problem because when you leave gaps between language learning processes, then the people will lose their sort of the level that they have achieved. So we created sort of this idea based upon chat roulette. It's a blind date site, used to be, and we created an online version of where people can practice language and Estonian language. Then we did it in Zoom, and it was sort of a random groups of people were put together to discuss given topics and a certain amount of time. It was every second Tuesday. It was for 1 hour, is really fun. It was really sort of people. There are sort of there are sort of people who come every time, and it's been over almost for 1.5 years. So people were really enjoying it, and they helped. Little improvements helped them to sort of gain their keep their level of language. And currently, we're having a project that works with to decrease the risks of mental health diseases. And what the research maybe has pointed out, these are a couple of quotes from our field work, is that yellow is from a child who says that maybe one of the most important aspect that makes him feel good or bad is how things are in his own family. And we looked also to the parents aspect, and parents are also in a problematic situation where they will seek help when they are already in a deep, complicated situation. Or teachers say that a safe environment can be created by the principals. And we are sort of developing, we are working on currently 2 solutions. Basically, parenting parents school bag, or it's a set of solutions for parents to increase their parenting skills, to decrease their basically decrease their what do you call it? Stress level. And another thing is that for children mental health, we're designing sort of a school joy break session. It's for the 45 minutes break during a school day where children can play and support their also support their mental health well-being. So the processes are similar to this drawing, I guess. When it starts from one, you think you know where you go, but you actually feel most of the time lost. And sort of as sculpturists say, as that you see where the material takes you, and you end. And this is sort of something that really maybe needs why design is important in public sector in my mind. It helps you go through the process. So just 1 minute I'll use, and is what we've learned is that field work creates a shift in perspective. If we've looked mostly into data and anonymous information and anonymous sort of information about the problems at hand, then fieldwork gives you more personal, empathetic ways of understanding the problem. Cooperation. This is something that our public officials also point out, one of the best values to our program. And there are other aspects also that you can find in this slide, but maybe this is all from my side at the moment. If anyone has any questions, I'll really love to answer them. Or
yes, well, I have loads of questions, Daniel, and there is one question in the Q&A, but I suppose I'm okay. Design is sometimes, for some reason, is still seen as slightly exotic. But, and this was spoken about earlier in another session, but the way you've described it there, and you gave us some really very vivid examples of how designing, co-creating solutions using a design thinking process can can really unlock unexpected solutions that really just do go to the heart of what's required, what's necessary. So its design is, despite being very ultimately pragmatic and practical and useful, it is seen as slightly exotic, but it also seems to me to be something that is actually, when you look at design and you interrogate it, it's actually just part of a family of other practices, like collaborative planning, or other kind of practices that people who work with people kind of deploy to get to do things properly. But I mean, I suppose my question is, who set you up? Who established your group? Because if because that goes to the very heart of whether or not design is taken seriously in Estonia and with your government.
Mm-hmm. Our actually team was formed as a recommendation of Public Sector and Social Innovation Task Force, and Government Office went about to try. It's as I mentioned in the beginning, it was an experiment. It was an experiment for 3 years. We started out with 3 of us, but in the beginning of this year, we expanded to 5 people. And actually, 11 days ago, the experiment was supposed to have its deadline. Okay. But at least for the short time period, we are continuing, which means that that the relevant people or people at see that there is a value to it. That's sort of people who help to go through the process and also enhance cooperation between different parties. I guess there is a question in the Q&A session also about what are our biggest sort of learning points. I don't know if they are the biggest, but there are sort of the important aspects. Is we are sort of designing our process or our work ourselves. No one is telling us how to do it. That's why we are learning sort of as we are doing. So the first round of project that we did was we did everything ourselves. That was very quick learning from us that if we want to get public officials ownership for the problems and the solutions, we can't do it ourselves. We need to do it together. That was really quick. It was the first round end of the project. Project was the sort of the understanding. Second one that I would like to point out that there is a need for third point of view in that sense. This is something the designer can bring. It's sort of the mentor's view. It's you are not inside. You're not responsible sort of for the problems at hand, but you're helping to see sort of and keeping the user's point of view during the whole process. And of course, the biggest learning point is that innovation in public sector is cooperation.
Yes.
Which is funny, but it truly is. And there are very objective reasons why things are not why things are as they are. And
yes, because I know, do talk about that, because while Estonia is, it seems like you've painted a really interesting picture of Estonia, and the fact that you speak many languages, and you are you are in between so many other countries, that there seems to be almost a compelling need to integrate, to be diverse, but to integrate, to reach out, but culturally, it just seems that the public sector is hierarchical, it's risk averse, it's built on a tradition of custom and practice, and therefore it's very slow to innovate. It actually is not comfortable with innovation and diversity and experimentation. Is that the case in Estonia, or is it something that would be different? Do you think is different in every culture?
I think there are these subjects that are more likely to change, and there are, for my biggest surprise, because I hadn't had any serious contact with public sector before I came to the innovation team. I was totally private sector, and innovation was something always trying for new, for added value, for everything, new. Then I was actually surprised how many progressive and sort of progressive thinking people are there. It was, for my surprise also. I guess
maybe they just need permission. They need permission.
Absolutely, it's definitely this one case also.
Can you? I know we have to wrap up and this is so interesting, but I do want to ask you one question in one word. Who do you report to? And this came up in the chat. What minister or who do you report to?
We report to the board of the Secretary Generals, which is they're the heads of the ministry, basically.
So it's a team. Okay, that must be tricky.
Just to last sentence from my side, and then I'll give the microphone to Andrea. That's why it's important is that, as you said, that public officials need sort of time and space to innovate. It can't happen as a sidekick, and that's why having the highest permission and means that you are sort of, I know it sounds better than it is actually, in that sense that
no, I've no doubt you've got challenges, no doubt.
There are many challenges, but just to wrap up, my point is that when you get the yes, then it's hard to say no to that.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and thanks everybody for listening to us. It was a really fascinating discussion, and over to you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali, and a special thank you to you, Daniel, for sharing these examples of diversity in public sector innovation.